Hi, welcome back to Just Boxing Live. I am your host, Sean Fitzgerald. We are here at Sweet Science Boxing Gym in Hawthorne, California, and have a full table today. That's right, we have four, I won't count myself, 4 experts to talk about boxing. What's up, guys?
What's going on?
What's going on?
What's
I should
up?
introduce everybody.
Go for it, man.
Okay, I'll start with my partner in crime. To my immediate right, lead writer for Supreme Boxing, Anthony Stacks Saldana.
Good morning, everybody. Nice early 11:30 morning edition of this
Morning
Just
edition.
Boxing Live podcast. I'm glad to be here. Got a bunch of guests today.
I am impressed that you made it from Las Vegas.
Man.
You were at the fights last night, right?
I sure was. I was in Vegas. Yeah, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. You have some comments, I take it?
Just a couple.
Just a couple comments.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have anything to do with an early stoppage, would it? Should I reserve? Okay. I'll reserve.
Just resume. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, to my far right, we have returning. It's been a while, though.
It has been a while.
Professional matchmaker and boxing advisor, Charles Bosecker.
How's it going? Good morning, everybody.
I know. I think it was April of last year.
Yep.
April 2018 was the last time we were here, so we got a lot of boxing to catch up on.
Oh, we do. Yep.
Including fights this week, as well as some fights coming up this weekend. To my immediate left, we have 2019 SoCal Amateur Champion. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's right. We got Jesse Lobito.
Yes.
Gonzalez. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And we actually, Stacks, I don't know if you remember, he was at the amateur event, the charity event that we went to in Compton.
Okay. Yeah.
So we've
For
actually crossed
Adano
paths.
Ochoa.
For Adano Ochoa. So we've crossed paths before. To my far left, we have professional fighter, 8-1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
8-1. And, of course, I'm referring to George Acosta. Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on out
A
here.
lot of stuff going on, man. A lot of fighters here. We got matchmakers here. We got Sean the expert here. So, man.
I don't know about that.
Good to go. We got Nancy Rodriguez tuned in. What's going on, Nancy?
Shout out to Nancy Rodriguez.
Good morning, Nancy.
From the
Good morning.
WBC.
From the
Good morning.
WBC. Of course.
Yeah.
Where should we start?
Let's start with the fights, man.
You want to start with the fights this time? We'll change it up a little bit. We normally don't start there, but we can go there.
So did you watch the zone card? Because I didn't.
I did watch some of it, yeah, and
Yep,
Chuck watched
I
it
did.
too.
I watched
Yeah.
some of it, yep.
May I call you Chuck? I didn't ask.
You
that.
can.
Okay.
You can. Just you.
I was
Just
gonna,
you, though.
Aaron was here. Has been here a few times, and she's referenced you both times. She calls you Chuck.
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm not there yet. I still go with Mr. Bosecker. But I think
You're there now.
Yeah, your second
You've made
appearance,
it.
we can
Yeah.
call you Chuck.
I call him Carlos, bro. So
That's right. Hey, that's right.
Carlitos.
Carlitos way.
Oh, man. So, yeah, the DAZN cards, and then, of course, the card that you were at, which was the top-ranked card.
Correct.
My opinion was that was the better of the two cards in terms of general contests and things like that.
Yeah.
So, should we start with that one? Top
Yeah.
rank?
Let's go. Let's go for it, man.
I know you have some thoughts on it. I can tell you're itching to get it out.
I got a few, man. Now it was a good card. It was it's my second time being at the Cosmo at the Chelsea there at the Cosmo. Very good venue, great card. Had some local fighters on the card, including Arnold Barbosa Jr.
Yep.
He came away with a big win over William Silva, a knockout win. So Arnold looked real good. He's still undefeated. He is the junior welterweight NABF champion, which is a branch of the WBC. So I'm hoping that we'll get to see Arnold go up against Jose Ramirez pretty soon. I know Jose Ramirez got a big fight coming up in China against Victor Postal. Postal's never been stopped. He's lost fights, but as far as being stopped, he's never been knocked out. So he's a tough competitor. I know Ramirez is coming off a hand injury. He hurt his hand, so he had surgery. Hurt his hand against Hooker. Had surgery on his hand, so it's a big market out there in China, so hopefully we'll get to see a future fight between Arnold Barbosa and Jose Ramirez on that card.
That's an interesting fight to make in China, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Big
it's
time.
not even in Macau.
Yeah,
it's like
no,
it's like in a
I don't
really
understand that.
peculiar
It's
fight.
Fantasy Island, right? It's like in some
Not that
little-
there's anything wrong with China. It just doesn't seem like normally you would expect for there to be someone who's a draw, sort of in that part of the world, in participating in the main event card. Like
Yeah.
that one is a little bit peculiar to me.
I mean, with as many people as China has, I mean, you get a percentage, 1%, 2% of the people tuning into this fight, making
Pretty
money
sure
off-
1% of the people won't be there.
No,
but
I'm not saying at the
you
fight.
can
I'm
do
just
the
saying
math.
tuning in. Yeah, no, I'm just saying tuning in, or watching that fight, the advertising, the marketing, you know, I mean, it's about money. It's about the bottom line at the end of the day.
But let me ask you something. So you were saying that there's a possibility of Barbosa versus Ramirez. I think Ramirez beats Barbosa right now. There's no way that I don't think Barbosa's ready for Ramirez.
You know,
there's no way.
Not yet. I mean, he's undefeated, but I mean, he needs to step up and get a good challenge in front of him. And the only reason I say that is they're both top ranked fighters.
Yep.
The fight would be easy to make. They're both ranked in the WBC, you know, especially with Barbosa being the NABF champion. You know,
I mean,
he might get a shot.
It's all about opportunities, right?
Exactly.
We won't go too far into last night's fights, but right? I mean, it's all about opportunities and stepping up to the plate when it's ready.
Man, and to talk about opportunities, now we'll jump right into it. You know, you had the kid Gutierrez that came in 11 pounds overweight. Yeah. So it started off Friday. It started off Friday at the weigh-ins.
Correct.
Right?
I have a question about this because George, if you guys don't know, George has a YouTube channel.
I do.
And you are in some way a certified nutritionist or like a level 1 certified nutritionist.
On Precision Nutrition.
Precision Nutrition level 1. And first, I'm going to ask you to plug your channel because there's a lot of good information in terms of like basic sort of boxing things like how to wrap your hands, but you also get into a lot about nutrition, exercise, just different things that I think I follow many channels that cover the topic of boxing, and I find yours very interesting. So it's LUU, is that?
Yeah, it's LUU. Yeah.
LUU on YouTube. So you guys make sure to go follow George's YouTube channel. There's a lot of really good information, but a lot of it also focuses on nutrition. Like you even do recipes and like making things that boxers can eat. And one of the videos that I found most interesting was you cutting weight. Right. So you went through and explained sort of what your process was for getting during fight week, for getting from where you were, which is in the vicinity of 140 something pounds, and shedding those last pounds of water weight in order to get there, and how you did that. So we had someone who came in this weekend 11 pounds overweight, and Chuck and I were talking about this beforehand.
Yep.
They had the WBC 30-day, 14-day, 7-day weigh-in, and it was on point according to what the WBC received, right? So It was on point all the way until the day of the weigh-in. What are some of the mistakes, or what do you think someone can do to cause that kind of discrepancy in the weight? Because 11 pounds, like I think most of us hear that for a fighter that's that size. It's not a big weight anyway. And you look at it and you go, wow, it's just a massive increase in that short period of time.
Yeah, because what I saw, the WBC post, he was 3 pounds overweight like a week before.
Yeah, like 7 days before.
Yeah,
he was within just a few pounds. Yeah.
My guess is that he was probably having difficulty cutting weight, or he was trying to make the deadlines for each date. Yeah. So he was probably dehydrating himself every single time, because he was probably half a pound off each time, and I think his body broke down and he couldn't make the weight, and he probably tried rehydrating and he gained 11 pounds.
He said, fuck it, I'm eating the whole Thanksgiving turkey and everything, bro.
that's what Timothy Bradley said.
Like he just gobbled the whole damn thing down, the whole dinner, dozen tamales and everything. 11 damn pounds, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, so when he's taking that weight away, when you were showing that YouTube video, the dehydration aspect of it was really only in that last week. The rest was done through nutrition, diet, and things like that. So what you're saying is as a fighter, if you're dehydrating weeks and weeks in advance, you can do some damaging things to your body, and essentially at some point you have to hydrate again.
No, absolutely. You can't keep punishing your body for that amount of time, but it's gonna break.
So did you go to school for like nutrition, or?
No, I was going to school, but I decided to turn pro. Yeah, and it was difficult to do both at the same time. It
would be good because of your background and your knowledge about weight cutting, being a fighter, weight cutting, going through it, but not necessarily working. I'm not saying you don't work with the nutritionist, but just having that background to be able to do it yourself. If you're still tuning in, Nancy, maybe it would be a good idea to get George into the WBC office. One thing they really look at is the safety of the fighters. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of work with UCLA. They do a lot of work on the side to see how they can improve the safety of the fighters, with one of the big things being weight cutting and being dehydration of the fighters. As you know, a lot of the water that goes away is around the brain. Right. So when they get hit, a lot of the brain damage is caused because of dehydration. It's an accumulation of punches, but not just an accumulation of punches, but you don't have that protection around the brain of the cerebral fluids where your brain is actually just hitting your skull when you're dehydrating. So, maybe we can get you into the WBC office soon and let you sit down and do like a Facebook Live with them as well.
Cool.
Or maybe even have you like as an ambassador type of person. I know one thing that they're doing now is they're using mouthpieces that measure how many punches you're taking. There's little chips inside these mouthpieces that are measuring that as well, because a lot of the fighters that are getting hurt goes back to past fights and also the sparring that they're doing leading up to the fights, the training and the sparring leading up to the fights. So this is a conversation that we can really, get in depth on and probably spend hours talking about, but
I could.
Oh, I know you could. I know you could.
It's pretty strong held beliefs that I put on here before around dehydration.
Yeah, but for Gutierrez to come in 11 pounds over, that's really unprofessional. I mean, it's super, super unprofessional. I mean, 1, 2, 3 pounds is still unprofessional, but I mean, 11 pounds, that's like, I've never seen that before. I think the closest thing I've seen to that was in Vegas on the Cotto Canelo card. There was a fight with Randy Caballero, and I think he showed up like 5.5 pounds over.
I think Chuck said his record was 16 pounds.
I have the 16-pound record. Thank you. Not thank you, actually.
You came in 16 pounds heavy, bro.
No, not me, a fighter.
He saw a fighter come in 16 pounds heavy.
So I had,
I know we had talked about this at Hollywood Fight Nights about fighters coming in heavy, but I didn't know it. 16 damn pounds.
It was a 16-pound guy that was over. Yeah.
Man,
we ended up having him lose. I think it was like 5 pounds at the weigh-ins. He lost. Put him on the treadmill at the weigh-ins, right?
I've met girls that during pregnancies that don't even gain 16 pounds, man.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It was a short notice fight, and I mean, it was one of those situations to where, I was fibbed to. I think I was just fibbed to all along.
Yeah.
About the guy being able to make weight, right? Just so that they can make the fight. It was a short notice fight, and, it is what it is.
And this is actually something that we were talking about beforehand. I think with the 30-day, 14-day, 7-day weigh-in, and I'm not saying that this is the case. Obviously, I have no idea. But effectively, when you see, for instance, Canelo or Triple G posting on Instagram their 30-day weigh-in, it's really just a picture of them on the scale. Right? And then they're turning that picture over as evidence that, hey, I'm on point. And I don't know, it's probably not the most effective way to do it, in the sense that it seems like it would be relatively easy to
have somebody else stand on the scale,
do a lot of different things.
So there's not a representative of.
I don't believe so.
It doesn't appear to be the case, and that could be wrong. Nancy, if you're on, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And I understand that those kinds of things cost money. You can't have representatives out at everybody's house and everybody's gym all the time. It takes a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of money and things like that. So it's not really a criticism. And I'm all for the 30-day, 7-day, 14-day kind of weigh-ins. But I do think that the way it appears, at least the way it comes across when you see like Canelo or one of these guys doing their 30-day weigh-in, it's really them on their bathroom scale, right? Like a photo of them on their bathroom scale and then turning that over. So if that's the case, it's
I mean, I have guys go live. So some of the bigger fights that I match, I'll have them go live on Facebook or wherever. To me personally, it's a live chat
and get on
a live video, so I'll see the guy doing the getting on the scale live, so I know leading and coming into the fight week, right, for example, that the guy is only within a few pounds and things of that nature. Those are a lot more of the bigger fights. But even the smaller fights now, I'm telling guys to take pictures or send me a video of them on the scale. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, me as a matchmaker, who does everybody look at, right?
Sure.
If we're at the weigh-ins and everybody's looking at the matchmaker, what's going on here? How come this guy is overweight? And I mean, a lot of the times I'm lied to, unfortunately. So I got to protect myself, and that's why I have to have those videos and pictures.
Yeah.
So you must constantly be on the phone and like dealing with all sorts of different things.
Constantly.
Like weight management, all sorts of
babysitting. I'm a really good babysitter of fighters.
I was going to say, so you have to chase them down for medicals and stuff like that
all
too?
the time. Yeah. We're just talking about on the way here. I mean, there was a local promotional company that was in and out of Southern California fairly quick because of medicals, right? Because I think they lost 3 fights in one night, or 2 or 3 fights because of medicals. And I was telling the guys, it's so important. California, we have so many different restrictions for medicals, which is a good thing, right? I wouldn't even call that a restriction. It's requirements, right? And I think it's important for the fighters, but it's a tedious task for certain fighters to have to deal with, you know. And so you have to really be on top of these guys to get them done, because the commission's on top of us, not the fighter, right? So we have to be the middleman, or I have to be the middleman to be on top of the fighter to get their medicals done and completed, you know. So that show I'm talking about, at the fight night, the commissioners came in and said, nope, these 3 fights aren't happening. You guys are missing blood, or you're missing neuro, or, you know, things of that nature. And from what I understand and heard, that the promoter looked at all the trainers and managers and said, that's your guys' fault. Well, no, it's actually his fault, you know. It's the matchmaker and promotional company's fault if a fighter doesn't have medicals leading into the weigh-ins or fight night. You know what I mean? It's our job.
And the impact of losing 3 fights on a card, I mean, in the state of California, there has to be like a minimum number of scheduled rounds.
24 rounds.
Yeah, 24 scheduled rounds to even have an event.
Well, you still can have an event, but you have to pay a hefty fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's they add on some fees. You can still have the event. Yeah, it's 24 rounds for the standard rate, and anything under you get charged for.
Okay. So still, the impact of losing 3 fights then could result in
huge.
Yeah.
And a bunch of ticked off fans, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
man, you got a lot of people buying tickets and whatnot, trying to see, you know, these fighters get into the ring. And that's, to me, basically what led up to the fight happening between Adam Lopez and Oscar Valdez. You know, Top Rank had to save the card.
Did you hear Bob Arum threw him out of the hotel?
Yeah,
Gutierrez,
I posted
yeah,
the
he
video.
said they kicked him out of the hotel.
He says he's out of the hotel. It's unprofessional. It's a fucking disgrace. You know, Bob was on
language.
One. Yeah, Bob was on one. Hey, don't kill the messenger, man. I could play.
Children might be watching this show.
Poor children. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry about that, man.
No, that's all good.
Yeah.
My son's not foreign to that.
Yeah. I forgot little man back
Live
in the back.
Live studio
man.
audience here, man.
Live studio audience. Yeah. No, but it led up to a fight between Adam Lopez getting the call up. He was scheduled to fight Luis Correa, a fighter from Robert Garcia's camp.
At 126
At
pounds.
126.
So
what happened with that fight?
So that fight got canceled. Correa didn't fight.
But why? What was
because they promoted Adam Lopez.
They moved
because
Lopez.
of that reason only. Okay.
Only for that
I thought
reason.
Maybe that fight was already scratched. The Korea fight was scratched already.
He was there.
So okay.
Adam jumped up. He went up 4 pounds in weight. Fought 2-time world champion Oscar Valdez, and basically he held his own for 7 rounds until the fight was stopped.
I would say he did more than hold his own.
Yeah, I would too.
He was winning.
Yeah, I feel as though he was winning.
In the second round, he actually caught him with a nice left hook and dropped Valdez. Valdez looked a little shocked. He was hurt. You can tell he was hurt. It wasn't a flash knockdown. He got his wits about him, and Adam boxed. Adam boxed his ass off. He put on a good show. It was a good back and forth battle. Then he got caught with a big overhand right to the face, you know, and he got dropped. Got up, beat the count, made it through the end of the round. I think there was 7 seconds left in the round when he took another hard shot. His head went back. He pivoted around, and that's when Russell Mora jumped in and called an early stoppage to the fight. And I think I'm not the only one that has that opinion when I say it was an early stoppage. Throughout the fight, Adam didn't take punishment. Adam did get hit. He did get dropped. But as far as punishment, Valdez was never putting combinations together. The most combinations, I've seen him put a couple of 2 pieces together to the body. But as far as just teeing off on Adam, never happened in the fight.
So let me ask, did you guys watch the fight?
I didn't see the fight.
Did you see it? Did you think that the stoppage was early?
I think that he didn't have enough time to see Lopez react to it, because Lopez looked like he wasn't going to go down. He was...
Yeah, and like I'm kind of on the same page in terms of the stoppage. He, at the time that the fight was stopped, he had taken the right hand, and it did pop his head back, but he immediately pivoted out and turned him into the ropes, which means that Adam Lopez had the whole ring behind him to maneuver at that point. And there was only 7 seconds left in the round, and I understand that the referee is, in retrospect, Russell Moore is having to make this call in real time, and he's also trying to protect the fighter, and that's his job. We also can't see maybe some of the things that Russell Moore sees, but looking at it on TV in the position that they were in, him having just pivoted out, him having so much room to maneuver and seeming to be all there. And like you said, not taking a lot of punishment. We have the benefit of knowing that there's only 7 seconds left in the round, which perhaps you could make an argument that Russell Mora should know that as well, that he should be aware of how much time is left in the round. But it did seem to be too early. If you guys are on the chat, let me know what you think, because I've seen people go both ways on this. I felt it was too early.
And that's a perspective from you watching it on television, knowing what the time is and whatnot. Check this out. I'm live. I'm sitting on a balcony, which at the Chelsea, the balcony sits directly over the ring, right? So I'm looking down, literally down on the fight. Perfect view. Adam's eyes, he was never out on his feet. You can tell a lot by a fighter's eyes once they're taking that punishment. If they're out on their feet, if they're dazed, his eyes were never in that. He never had that 100-mile stare. I call it that 100-mile stare where they're just gone, where they're just out on their feet. He was alert.
Well, and I think one of the main criteria that we like to utilize is whether or not you're able to intelligently defend yourself or intelligently protect yourself. And I think actually the last defensive maneuver that he made there, pivoting out, turning him into the ropes, giving himself that extra space, showed that his head was clear enough that he was still, changing levels and doing things like that. He seemed to be intelligently defending himself. He wasn't in a position where he was defenseless. He just got hit, which happens.
Right.
It happens.
It happens in boxing. People get hit sometimes. Not that I want anyone to get hurt, but it did seem too early. It is boxing.
It's boxing. You get hit, and like I said, it wasn't a toll of punches. It wasn't like he was taking a beating. It was one big shot where his head went back, and it's I don't know.
Well, this is because of, and Chuck, this is something I actually wanted to ask you. So we've had a number of recent tragedies this year. Whether it's Hugo Santillan, Maxim Dadashev, Patrick Day. And so you could look at that and you could say, for instance, people are proceeding with caution. They're doing these things. We know in the state of California, they've made changes to the boxing severity index.
Correct.
And things like that. So before we actually get into the question I have for you, one is, can you summarize for the people who may not know what is the BSI and how is it used in California?
Well, just like what you said, it's Boxing Severity Index, and it's based on a number of different things. Fighter's age, fighter's record, meaning how many losses he has behind him, how many knockouts he has, the quality of opposition he's fought. So there's a number of different things that are gauged behind the Boxing Severity Index. And, California in specific here, Andy Foster, the lead commissioner, really stands behind that, and I agree with it too. I mean, it's for the fighter's safety.
So ultimately, it's a way to score a professional fighter so that you know how much risk is involved in their matchup. And
so me as a matchmaker, based on the Boxing Severity Index, that's how I can also gauge and match certain specific fights.
Okay, we have Nancy chiming in here. She basically says, look, I sense that the referee's concern after the hard knockdown Lopez suffered earlier in the round. The referees need to take into account the amount of punishment that the fighter's been taking in that round, not just make his decision on a single blow. You may have heard referee Mora's assertion to show him something. Perhaps perhaps he felt like Lopez wasn't showing him enough.
He did. He did. And to his credit, in the round, he does say, you have to show me something. But the other thing is, Adam Lopez, aside from intelligently defending himself, he was also responding. So he landed shots after he went down. Right. Like he went down, got back up, and landed punches.
And you know what?
And I agree. I was not there. I'm not Russell Moore, and I'm not making that decision in the moment. Just this is in reflection. Looking at it now, it looks like it's too early.
And I can tell you what though. For Adam to do what he did, for him and his managers and his team to take that fight on a one-day notice, to move up 4 pounds, to fight a 2-time world champion on one-day notice, to become the main event, to save Top Rank's card, right? That took a lot to do. And basically, it was because of his showing, because of the way he fought. He didn't just go in there and get knocked out in 2 rounds. Valdez didn't just wash him. He put on a show. He knocked Valdez down. He fought a tough fight. Many people can have their opinions on the stoppage itself, but to me, his stock has risen now.
Either way,
it is win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Despite the fact that he lost, he is more marketable now than he was before.
People are going to know his name, right? He's already coming off, to me, a fight of the year with John Carlos Rivera. Last night, he made more money in that fight than he's made in all his fights combined, right, to fight Valdez. He showed that he's a worthy opponent. He's still the NABF champion at featherweight, right? You put everything together, and sometimes a loss doesn't hurt you. Sometimes a loss like the loss that he did last night, when he lost last night, it's going to help him. For one, it's going to give him the confidence that he can hang in there with the world champion. It's going to open more doors because now the public's going to know who he is. They're going to be talking about it. To me, that stop, because it's controversial, has us talking about it, has people talking about it. People are going to know, oh, that's that kid that almost beat Valdez, or that was beating Valdez in a lot of people's eyes, was beating Valdez last night, right? So it opens up all these doors for the kid. You know, exactly, Nancy. Adam gained more in this fight than anything. The loss is only on paper. I personally think he should be ranked in the top 25.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. I actually had a question about that because this was initially intended to be a title eliminator for Oscar Valdez.
And it still was.
And I understand it still was. But what does that mean for Adam Lopez? Because Adam Lopez stepped up in weight. He was not ranked in that division, right? So, like, does that mean if Adam Lopez won that fight that he was entitled to challenge Burchell?
It never changed. It's still, the WBC kept it as an eliminator because they felt that if he was good enough to move up to 30, from 26 to 30, and beat Valdez, then they were going to give him that opportunity.
You inherently should be ranked in the top 15 if you have the ability to do that, I guess. Okay, fair enough. So, but back to the question I was asking, we were talking about early stoppages and referees maybe being overly cautious. And this kind of brought up that topic of the boxing severity index. So the score that a fighter gets that says how much risk they introduce into a fight. We have recently made changes to the way matches are made or the way the severity index is scored here in the state of California. Do you feel that that's been restrictive to you as a matchmaker in any way? Is it harder to make matches now than it was, say, last year or the year before that?
You know what? It just depends. And why I'm saying that is because it depends on the particular fighter and his team that I'm working with, right? Some fighters and their teams want to have that BSI 6 type of opponent, right?
To clarify, a BSI 6 is like a low BSI, right?
Yeah, that. Just to put that into, just to give you an idea. So Andy Foster, the league commissioner here in California, straight up specifically told me over the phone that he will never approve a BSI 6.
Okay.
Ever. And he doesn't even want to approve BSI 5s anymore. And there are a lot of fighters that are BSI 5s. Now, the last show that I worked, I was able to get 2 BSI 5s approved, but that's because I had a good argument behind it, right? So sometimes any score and calculation might be a little bit off, and so there's always, room for discussion as far as getting certain types of fights approved. But going back to that, it's all about the fighter's safety and their health. I mean, plain and simple, it has brought up challenges for me personally. But me as a matchmaker too, I want to match good fights, right? I'm a fan just like anybody else. I want to see a good fight. And when somebody tells me that they basically want a layover type fight, I'm shaking my head too. In all true honesty, I don't even want to put guys like that on the show, and a lot of other promotional companies like Roy and Bright and Tom will attest to that. They'll agree that, they don't want to have non-promoted fighters on their show that are wanting gimme type easy wins. That's a disgrace to the show. That's not fair to the fans. It's just common sense in my opinion.
I have a question, actually, as it relates to that. So you talk about the gimme-type wins, and it's not uncommon at the local level as we look at shows here to see young fighters take on easier fights as they go and they build their career. Yeah, right, they go through a building process. And my question is actually for you, George, because you recently had a fight this year with Ruben Torres, which is a fight as someone in your young career, right? You're 8-0 at the time, I think, approaching that fight, right? 7-0 approaching that fight. He's another young and undefeated fighter. How do you make the determination that that's the right step in your career instead of, some of the other types of fights that you might see a typical 8-0 guy, fight, if that makes sense?
Well, initially we weren't scheduled to fight each other. You know,
Okay.
the last week or the week before the fight, that's when everything changed. You know, he got offered the fight, I got offered the fight, and we were both training to fight, so we just accepted.
Yeah, and it's similar to what actually this kind of experience, right?
Yeah.
Adam Lopez was training to fight on the undercard, you know, and he got offered. So it was a last week decision. Is that how it is? And you guys were familiar with each other. Is
Yeah.
that true? Does that have an impact on the fight in any way in terms of like the psychology coming into that fight? Like the fact that you guys know each other as well as you do? You used to train together? Is that?
Yeah,
is
we
that,
used to train together for
Yeah.
a couple of years. No, I don't think I don't see. It wasn't difficult, you know, to fight him or anything. So
I remember when that fight got made, right? I had heard about it a couple weeks before. Me and Chuck had talked. And then it kind of fell through, didn't go through. And then the week of, you know, Chuck calls me up and says, it's going to be Acosta and Torres in Corona. I'm like, oh, seriously? Because, like, I know Ruben, like, pretty good. Me and Ruben are tight. And I haven't really met you. So I called you up. I interviewed you on the phone. Then I called Ruben up. Charles thought, he says, hey, what do you think of the fight? I said, Ruben's he's gonna fall right into George's hands. I said Ruben likes to come forward. If it gets on the inside, George is gonna beat him. And it happened that Ruben had a completely different game plan that night. And it was just weird that to see both of you guys at a Thompson event, because usually you don't see two young Thompson undefeated fighters, you know, getting matched up that soon. Alex Campanova usually doesn't do it that way, you know, and it's just I give you credit for taking that fight. I give Ruben credit for taking that fight as well, and it just it surprised me that we had two prospects like that, you know, fighting each other. You don't see that a lot out here in Southern California. They try to keep them away from each other, kind of build it up, you know, and maybe down the road it happens. But to see somebody like that, you know, 7-0 at the time, I think, you know, Ruben's undefeated at the time too. So it was interesting that fight was actually made.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Chuck, like everybody wants to see the best fights, but a lot of times they don't happen, right? Like particularly at the lowest level, like you can go to many, you know, what you can call a house show, a club show, whatever you want, and you can pick the side that's going to win all the fights. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
depending on who the promotional company is, you can go in there and say, okay, these all red corners are gonna run away with these. This one is a fight that I'm interested in because it had a tremendous amount of risk. And it's the same kind of thing with, if you're Adam Lopez, there's so much risk going into this fight. You've never experienced that moment before with someone of that caliber of an opponent. And one of the things that we were talking about beforehand is just the moment, right? Experiencing the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that the second you get to land the knockdown in the second round, so a lot of that has to just shed away. You know what I mean? Like all that goes away. You instantly, I would imagine, feel as though you belong in that moment. Like I belong here.
So,
and I think that's what we saw last night.
I got a question for you, man. One thing that I'm very big on, and not just because I work with Supreme Boxing and I work on marketing and advertising fighters, you know, and getting their name out there, but what can promotional companies do? Because I know you work with Tom Loeffler, you work with 360, you also work with Roy out in Orange County for the OC Fight Club. What can these promotion companies in Southern California do to bring more shows to the fans, to keep fighters going from TJ? Like Nancy just said, you know, this weekend in TJ, there was a shitload of fights. There was a lot of fights out there, basically tourism fights, where these kids are going down there, padding their records because they can't get fights here in the States. You know, and she's not saying they can't get fights in the States. That's something I'm saying. You know, it's like, it's really tough to try to get these kids fights. I tell them basically, hey, you guys got to sell yourselves. You guys got to market yourselves. You got to self-advertise. You got to get a good team around you and promote yourselves to put asses in seats and sell tickets, because that's what these promotion companies want. But how can some of these kids that just aren't getting fights get more exposure out here?
Is it true that they can't get fights in the States, or is it more that the specific opponents that are available to them in the States
That has a
are
lot
not-
to do with it. That
Right?
has a lot to do with
Yeah,
it, because
okay.
think about this for a second. Why would you want to go and keep in mind, obviously, you know, when you go fight in Mexico, those are paid for bouts, right?
Yes.
So these guys aren't going over there to fight to make pesos.
No.
You know, you're actually paying pesos to these guys, right? So yeah, it goes back to what you were saying. It's about padding records. And, you know, here's the thing. I agree sometimes. Let's say, for example, you're a professional boxer and you're not a signed fighter, and the next couple months of dates are taken up by different promoters and the cards are full, and you want your guy to fight. As far as a busy fight, maybe I can understand, and I get that, you know, staying busy. a fight here in TJ here and there, but it really doesn't do much justice for the fighter. I mean, what kind of experience do you gain from that? I mean, why don't you go to Wild Card or Maywood or Legends and go get some rough sparring over there? I mean, you'll get better work there and learning experiences there than going to TJ and essentially knocking out somebody like me that you shouldn't even be in the ring right now, right? I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know. Yeah. How do you, as a fighter, unless you're a Facebook fighter, right? A social media fighter, and you're just, I'm 10-0 with 10 knockouts, and where have you fought? TJ. How much have you made? Nothing. How much are you in debt? 10 grand or whatever it might be. I mean, I see these guys. They'll come into the club show level with these bloated records from Mexico, and a lot of the times they really struggle and they have a hard time. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. I've seen a lot of great fighters, obviously. We all have come out of Mexico. But just traditionally speaking, guys that live here and that go fight there and come back here don't always do so great here.
Yeah, look at Rocky Hernandez, for instance.
Yeah.
Undefeated out of Mexico. Golden Boy was making him out to be the next big thing. And
that's right.
Gets knocked out at the StubHub Center in the first round.
That's right.
So, I mean,
I'm not discrediting Mexico fighters at all. I'm just saying there's a different spectrum when the guys here are going there, right? And they're going there because they want these paid for bouts, and they don't want to fight anybody really tough. Why would you want to go to Mexico and fight somebody tough if you're paying for the bout, right? You're just looking for a win. You know what I mean?
You get sliding messages over there?
Oh yeah, I'm sliding in the DM.
So with that being said, there's California in 2018, 2019 has had the most boxing shows in the entire country. You tell me, what's the excuse then? Why can't a fighter get on the show? So sell tickets, market yourself, and take fights. Listen, I've never tried to overmatch an A-side guy, but I will match them up accordingly. I will match a good fight. I'll never overmatch them. But if you're not willing to sell your butt off as far as tickets, if you're not willing to take some risk when you get in the ring, if you're not willing to just train your butt off and be that guy that wants to get that promotional contract or whatever the case might be, then maybe you should hang them up. I mean, what's the point?
Exactly. I've said that from the beginning. You have to market yourself as a fighter. You got to market yourself. There's thousands of fighters out there, hundreds of thousands of fighters. They all have stories behind them. You guys have to go out there, sell yourself, market yourself, and make yourself special. You have to be able to sell seats. You got to remember that this is a business. These promotion companies are out there to make $1. Right?
They don't want to lose.
They don't want to lose money on you. They want to make sure it doesn't matter. I mean, you could be the best fighter in the world, but if you're not putting asses in seats, it doesn't do you any good, man. I've seen two of the best fighters in the world, and I bring it up over and over again. Man, when Kovalev and Ward first fought the first time, right? Both undefeated. They fought at the T-Mobile. That place was half empty, right? Because they don't sell themselves. Because they can't market themselves. Ward can't even sell out in his hometown of Oakland. You know what I'm saying? The Oracle was half empty when he fights in Oakland. So you have to be able to go out there and push yourself and promote yourself and make yourself that guy. Get you a good team behind you and do it, because these guys that go to Mexico that come back, like he says, man, you hear this word a lot. You get these fighters that get exposed out here. They go to Mexico and they build up, I'm 15-0 with 15 KOs or whatnot. Now it's time, to fight some real level, some real hungry competition that's been fighting out here in California or anywhere else around the United States. And these kids are getting beat. And they're looking bad, And
against 500 record type guys that have been fighting legitimate guys.
Yeah.
I've seen, and that just goes back to Lopez. Just because he has a couple blemishes now does not take away anything from him. Exactly. His stock has risen leaps and bounds.
There was a kid out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada that fought a couple weeks ago, Golden Garcia. And he fought against a kid out of TJ on the Thompson show and fought to a draw. Just because I'm sure he's not getting that level of experience in Toronto, Canada, as you guys do out here in Southern California.
Yeah, there's a false sense of security when fighters go to TJ and fight there, I can see how it builds your confidence, but at the same time, the level of opposition is not the same. So when you do fight in the States, right, the competition is different. So you go into the fight confident thinking, oh, you're gonna land a punch and this guy's just gonna fall, but that's not how it is.
I completely agree. I think you see it all the time with people who have big kind of knockout records. You know, cats like the Teofimo Lopez, where you see all the stunning knockouts and all this different stuff. But the truth is when you get to a certain level of competition, people don't just lay down. And I think it's important for as you're developing a fighter, it's important to get rounds in, and sometimes it's important to get tough rounds in. Like, it's important to experience an opponent who is rugged. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you end up with these situations where, you know, hey, I've knocked out every person I've ever faced in 6 rounds, and this guy, he's just not going away. And you have to, in some ways, you have to deal with it, because once you get to the world championship level, people aren't just going to go away, you know, like unless you're Deontay Wilder, I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even then, you know, you still have these naysayers on social media that, oh, Fury's he's the fake champ. He's not the lineal. He fought an old Klitschko. He's not a lineal. He doesn't have any titles. He's garbage, right? But he was 2 minutes away from beating Wilder. You know, if he wouldn't have got knocked down in that 12th round, that fight wouldn't have been a draw. He would have been the WBC heavyweight champion of the world.
Those naysayers exist for every fighter,
exactly.
though, to be fair.
And the same thing happened with Porter. The same thing happened with Sean Porter when he fought Errol Spence, you know?
Like right now, if we started having a pound-for-pound debate over Crawford, Lomachenko, or Canelo, I could already tell you what every person against each one would already say. Canelo tested positive for clenbuterol, and he lost 2 fights against Triple G. He shouldn't be number 1. Yeah. Terrence Crawford never fought any other top welterweights. You know, he shouldn't be number 1. Lomachenko lost to Salido. He shouldn't be number. It's everywhere you go, you can pick apart someone's career.
Exactly.
In that way.
We have another comment here from Nancy. She's talking about these fighters that go and they do pad their records. They become 15-0. If they're not signed by a promotional company, that usually means something, right? If you're at that record 15, 16-0, and you're not signed by a Golden Boy or Top Rank, or
can I curse a little bit?
Go for it.
Yeah, of course.
The S word.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's shit or get off the pot, right? Yeah. So if you're 15-0, you got to go take a fight. Go fight the promoted fighter to become the promoted fighter, right? And beat him. Yeah. That's the position you're in.
And, you know, I think Nancy knows a little bit about this, and I'm not going to mention any names, you know, but we helped the kid out.
Yeah.
Started fighting pro at a young age.
Uh-huh.
Same thing, 15-0, 15 knockouts.
Yeah.
And
you got to go for it.
And when it came time, he just said, I'm done. You know, and I think that was the best route for him, because once you're not in it mentally,
that's how you get hurt, man.
That's how you're gonna get hurt.
It's not worth it at that point.
You go and you live your life. You go to college. You go to school. You do what you're gonna do, because there's kids out there. There's men out there that want this. That this is their livelihood. They're literally fighting to eat. You know what I'm saying? They're hungry. And when I say hungry, they're literally hungry, man. They don't got no money. They're starving. Boxing's all they know. And if you're somebody that you got your mind on your girl, you got your mind somewhere else, you ain't focused, you ain't making weight. We've talked about this a lot the last couple weeks.
We've talked about that too.
I mean,
there's levels to this, right? Too. You can't stay in elementary school and then move up to go to college, right? Because you got to learn the ropes and you got to step up, right? So being behind and having a good team behind you are going to make sure that you get through these steps, right? You're always going to have that tough exam. But you beat that, or you win that, or you pass that exam, you're going to move up to the next level, right? And so, you know, in all true honesty, you know, I thought that the Lopez fight was going to be dumb. I thought that, of course, going back to, I'm talking school-wise, there's levels to it, right? Is Lopez really ready for that level of opposition? 2-time champion, all those professional fights, all those amateur fights. Well, you know what? He is a rarity, because traditionally he graduated, and he graduated early, right?
Yeah,
he took that test early
with honors,
and he graduated early. Now that's very rare for that to happen. Yeah. Traditionally, that shouldn't have even been close. But you know what? He believed in himself, and that has a lot to do with it. It's a lot of mental, and you know what? I'm not afraid to say I didn't think he stood a chance, but he did, and he did a great job. And because of that, you know, I want to see more of him.
It's funny because I was asked this last night by Michael Shepard from the Last Round 12. We were sitting next to each other. And before the fight, he says, what do you think? I said, I'm not going to lie. Adam's my friend. I said, and with my heart, I want Adam to win with all my heart. In reality, I don't see him getting past 8. And he didn't, but he surprised me. And like he said, that's the rarity of it. That's the unexpected. That's the theater of the unexpected. You know, the same thing with Andy Reese and Joshua. These are things that nobody expects. I mean, And I think the people that did pick Andy to win the fight was kind of like the way I was picking last night. You know what I'm saying? Picking with my heart. If Adam would have won, I would have said, yeah, I picked him, but I picked him with my heart. As a boxing professional, knowing the sport, I told the guy standing next to me, I don't think he gets past 8.
Yeah, well, we talk about it all the time. There's a difference between who we want to win and who we think will actually win, and I go through that conflict a lot. Like, in particular, with the fighters who come on the show, I have an opportunity to sit down and I get to talk to you guys. I connect with you on a more human level, more than just seeing someone on the TV, you know. So when someone like Adam is here or George, when you're here, naturally the next time you fight, unless you were a total jerk when you came, which you haven't been. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to root for you because I had a chance to sit down and build a rapport in some way with the two of you. So, like, looking at the fight last night, it's hard because for the same reason, right? You see Adam in there, and I've had a chance to connect with him, and as a result, you want that. But I don't think it's not unfair to say, in his case, perhaps we thought it was too soon. It's a weight class above, right, where he was at. He weighed in at 126. He 13-1. You know what I mean? He's very junior in his record. So I think the expectation that he wouldn't graduate last night, to use that metaphor, is fair. I think it was a fair assessment. It's just that and like he did better than any of us expected.
It was win-win for him, especially because the showing he put on. Excuse me.
So real quick, I'm going to give a couple shout-outs here. Paco Perez. Shout out to Paco. Paco said, how about getting the promotional company to bring their top fighters and matching them up at least once or twice a year? So, for example, 360 versus Top Rank or Thompson versus OC. I think from a fan's perspective, everybody would get on board with that. That's more a business challenge that they would have to overcome in terms of who's hosting it, who's getting paid what, and so forth and so on.
And not just that, Paco, but I mean, that's what the fans want. They want these young fighters from different promotional companies to fight each other. But you got to understand, that's the golden goose right there. You know, if I got an undefeated kid that's fighting for Golden Boy Promotions, that's who I'm going to covet. That's who I'm going to build up. I'm not going to try to put a loss on this kid's record. Am I going to give him fighters to see him progress? And like Charles says, to give him a challenge, not just knock out in the first round. We want to see these fighters get challenged and, of course, learn and use these fighters in front of them as a measuring stick, whether it's a taller fighter, whether it's a southpaw fighter, whatever the case may be. But you don't really want to put him in against another top prospect for a $5,000 payday so one of these kids can take an L. That's just not going to happen.
I was about to say that. I think that's a great idea. Right, I think that would be cool. It would be interesting. It would be something people would want to watch. But exactly what you said, I feel if you know one, we call them team or promotion. You know, building a fighter up, the other promotion building a fighter up. If it's going to be promotion versus promotion, I think the fighter should be paid a little more.
Exactly,
I agree, and it's got to make sense. There's got to be something on the line, a regional title, some sort of minor title. There's got to be things on the line, and it does happen, Paco. I mean. You know better. I mean, you know that a lot of these guys, well, I should say unpromoted fighters are willing to all fight each other, right? But as far as the promoted fighters, going back to what we just said, it's got to make sense, you know, like I said, golden egg. And speaking of promoted fighters, so Tom Loeffler, 360 Promotions, has Sir Hai Boachuk. Now, let me tell you something. This guy, early on, and Tom might hate me for saying this, but early on, the beginning of his career, when I was matching some of his fights, I was like, okay. I mean, I never thought he would be like an elite type fighter or a guy. I just thought he was good and he was solid. But you know what? I'll tell you something. That kid is a monster. I've been trying to match him up to get him rounds, and it's just not happening. I mean, Andy Foster thinks very highly of him. I mean, he's unbelievable. You know, so. You might have, like, same thing with Lopez. I matched Lopez's fourth pro fight against Alfredo Hernandez.
Alfredo.
On an Ed Holmes show, and matched it, I think it was like on a 2 weeks notice. Alfredo was only 1-0 from Mexico or what have you, and Lopez was 4-0, and Lopez really struggled. And back then I was like, I don't see the hype, you know, because his dad and everything else, and just everything about him, he was like really sought out at the time, and so I never really thought much. But you know, since I've been watching him after that fight, he has really progressed and shown a lot. You know, And he's been taking on undefeated guys after undefeated guys. He proved himself. He didn't just knock on the promotional door. He knocked it down. And now that he is willing to take risks like he did last night is just that's a promotional company's dream too. You know, whether he ever becomes a champion or just a gatekeeper, a solid gatekeeper. You know, another one, Carlos Morales, same thing. He was the same thing, man. He wasn't just knocking on Golden Boy's door. He was knocking it down. He was fighting undefeated guy after undefeated guy until finally Golden Boy signed him, you know, and now he's kind of, you know, he's at that level where he's been contending and competing at that high level. And, you know, I don't know if he'll become a champion, but he's getting these great opportunities that nobody else would give him, you know.
One of the questions I had, and it's not here, but it was before when they knew I was going to be talking to you. It was from a fan, said, how does the pay work for fighters and promotional companies as far as, is there a base pay that the State Athletic Commission tells you have to pay these guys?
Yeah, there's a minimum payment per the California Athletic State Commission, and that's $100 per professional boxing round.
Scheduled, right?
Scheduled
round, right?
Yeah, so whether it goes one round or if it's an 8-round fight, they get paid $800. I'm just saying that's the minimum.
Yeah, so
now,
per scheduled round, just to clarify for.
Yeah, per scheduled round. So if it's a four-round scheduled bout, the bare minimum is $400. Now, that's not what is traditionally paid. No.
Yeah.
So at the club show level, let's say Roy's show, right, at the 4-round level, or even Tom's show, it's anywhere from $800 to $1,200, depending on if you're a pro debut, depending if maybe you're 4-0 or 2-2, whatever the case might be. But, you know, that's kind of like the standard club show type range. Another thing a lot of fighters always ask, and the trainers, does the promotional company cover medicals? No, traditionally they don't, and that's not their responsibility. It's the fighter's responsibility. And the medicals are very expensive. It's about $800, $810 with Dr. Gluckman's office for full medicals for a pro debut fighter, for example. Another thing is, too, fighters need to keep in mind, you know, every 6 months they need to do blood work, which is $90. They need to do a physical every 6 months. You know, a neuro is annually, you know, which is another $165. These are all things that, you know, a lot of pro fighters don't keep in mind and up to date with.
So
you know?
What if, we'll take George for instance, say he's a worker for a school district, right, on the side, and he has his own personal insurance, Kaiser, Blue Shield, whatnot. Will his insurance cover those, or does he have to still come out of pocket sometimes?
So here's the thing. So with California professional boxing, medicals need to be on California forms. So a lot of the times these insurance companies, the doctors don't want to write their findings or medical evaluations on California Athletic State forms. So we have doctors like Dr. Gluckman's office that, you know, are used to doing this. So yeah, because it causes a lot of confusion sometimes, you know, because one doctor, they'll go to Kaiser, for example, and it's a 5-page form that they have to fill out, and they'll fill out one form and then send it all back, but we still need the other 4 forms signed, and we need the date and the signature, and then they call the doctor's office and they don't want to do it, and it just causes a lot of confusion.
Okay.
So most of the time, no.
People
just traditionally go to Dr. Gluckman's office here in California, Southern California at least. It's easier that way.
The one out in the harbor area?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Carson, I think.
Yeah, there's another one out there. I don't know the name. But yeah, I just normally stick with Dr. Gluckman's office.
Okay. Interesting.
Shout out to Dr. Gluckman.
Yeah.
Hey man, he's
you know,
he's the main fight doctor.
There's a lot of behind the scene stuff that the casual fans don't know, you know, so it's always good to have amateurs, professionals, matchmakers, you know, and people with our own opinions sitting here talking boxing, because the fans just see what these promotional companies want them to see. When they sell them the fights, that's all they see. They don't know the behind the scenes stuff. They don't know about the grind that these kids are doing to try to get sponsorships and to make that money outside of the ring, going through the medicals, having to deal with matchmakers, having to deal with small promotional companies, having to fight on club shows. You know, they don't see that. You know, the majority of the fans, you know, were used to seeing HBO 24/7 when HBO had boxing and went off of that. You know, they don't see the grind and what it takes to get to that next level. So,
you know what, I respect the fighters immensely. I mean, these guys go through so much for so little, right? On paper, at least, I should say, right? And, you know, unless you're an Olympian or a 20-time national champion or whatever, signed at 17 to top rank or whatever the case might be, I mean, these guys go through the ringer early on, you know? And to go professional, especially here in California, is not easy. And it's a long road. And, you know, I just mentioned the pay. It's not much.
So going back to the athletic commission, we'll stick with California because you work with them a lot, with Andy Foster.
New York, too.
In New York, too. But with, say, somebody like Lomachenko, right? 400 amateur fights, comes in and his second or third fight, he's fighting for a world title, right? How does that work as far as the index go? Do they take a deep look at these amateur careers that some of these kids have before they put them in certain fights? Because, I mean, look at Conor McGregor, for instance. Even with Vegas and the Nevada State Athletic Commission, this guy's never boxed in his life, but yet he's getting in with Floyd Mayweather, who's arguably the best ever, you know. And
Bob King in Nevada is very strict, lead athletic commissioner over there. So
how does that work?
Yeah, it just goes back to what you were saying. It's their background, too. You know, that's heavily looked at and taken into consideration. And, I mean, that's why that fight was approved.
And it's a business.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a business.
Right. I
at the end of the day, it's a business.
It makes money. And to Chuck's point, like even with the severity index of 5, for example, you're able to provide that context or spin it in such a way that it becomes an interesting matchup. You know what I mean?
Well, Lomachenko would be a minus at that time. He would probably be a -1. He wouldn't have any. He wouldn't be plus anything back then. Yeah. He would still be a minus. So the boxing severity index part of that particular matchup wouldn't have been a factor. It would have been just, is he qualified at that point? You know, because
you have to be ranked and things like that. For example, to compete for a title.
Yeah, because you take somebody like, you know, your amateur here. He's 20-0, right? But you have amateurs that have hundreds of amateur fights, 15-time, 18-time national champions. He's going to be matched as a professional different than somebody at that level, correct? When he starts as far as his professional debut?
Yeah, so I'm sure you've taken a look at Teofimo Lopez. Did he start off at the 6-round level? Do you know?
I don't recall.
Well, a lot of these guys that have multiple national championships or they've been to the Olympic trials or the Olympics, they'll start at the 6-round level versus 4-round level, you know? And that's just because they're so far advanced past that like introductory 4-round level, you know, but that's kind of rare, but it happens.
So the commission basically just take a look.
Yeah, look at that YouTube fight, right? That was a 6-round scheduled fight, right? Pro debut,
6-round. Yeah.
So there's your answer,
but
there.
To George's point, money, right? Yeah,
everyone's getting paid.
Yeah, everyone's good.
But you know what? With all money aside, right? I actually spoke with Andy about that matchup. I said, hey, what do you have going on this weekend? Because it was the same weekend as Hollywood Fight Nights. And I said, are you going to be coming to our show? He really likes the Hollywood show, and sometimes he comes. And he's like, no, I'm going to that. He's got this Texas accent. He's like, no, I'm going to this show over there in L.A. for the YouTubers. And I was like, really? And I was like, so how does that – are those guys even qualified? He goes, no, I've been watching them. They can fight, you know. And so – that's all business aside. He truly believed, and he's the guy that makes the decisions and makes the approvals, right? That is a legitimate matchup, and for that level and for what it was, I didn't even see the fight, but I heard it was a good matchup for them what they were, right?
Yeah. And Jack Reese was madder than the Hornets.
I didn't see the fight play out. I just heard it was okay for what it was.
He was
right?
pissed, like
really.
You could tell he was in the ring, like, why am I dealing with this bullshit? Like. He just had that look on his face.
You know what though? Jack
am I right?
Sure, but it resulted in a kind of a controversial decision because of his 2-point deduction. 2-point deduction. See, man, I can't believe we're still talking about that fight.
But hold on, I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'll end this particular situation or that fight. So, just to give you an example, so that pro debut, one of those guys, right? I don't even remember.
Logan Paul.
Let's use Logan Paul as an example. Pro debuting at the 6-round level would not be approved to fight a 10-0 guy here at the 6-round level. Just to give you an example,
that makes sense. It's an even matchup, though.
Right, it's all about matchups because I've had guys that are not approved at the 6-round level. Talking about opponents, right? Let's give you an example as a 6-round level, but I've been able to get them approved at a 6-round level against a different opponent. right?
Yeah,
it's all about the levels of opposition and about the BSI. So he could still be a BSI 4, let's say, and not approved for a 10-0 guy, but I can get him approved for a 5-0 guy that's not a big killer, that doesn't have a big knockout punch, and Andy will approve that fight because it goes back to the level. So just because somebody's a BSI 4 or 5 that's questionable doesn't mean they can't still fight at 4 or 6 round level. It just or even 8. It just depends. I mean, it's situational, right? With anything.
So in terms of matchups, we have a rematch of a match that was originally a 13-1 favorite, and now it's 2-1 going on next week. Saturday, of course, I'm referring to Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Anthony Joshua for 3 heavyweight titles, unified heavyweight championship. I know, Stax, you and I have talked about it a few times, but it is approaching here in Saudi Arabia.
Man, I'm so torn on this fight. Seriously, so torn.
So let's...
I want Ruiz to win again. I think he's going to, right? I do. I see it playing in my mind just because of the fact that I don't think Joshua's there mentally, but physically the dude is so strong, man. I still see him just blowing Andy out, but man, I'm torn. I don't know.
Let's give the fighters a chance. Do you guys plan on watching it?
Yeah, I think Andy's gonna win.
Okay.
I want Andy to win, but going with what you were saying, I can't see it like that either, because I think Joshua's mentally, he's messed up mentally, but I think Joshua's gonna try to keep Andy away the whole fight. I don't think he's gonna try to exchange with him.
So if Andy wins, is it fair to say that he wins by knockout?
That's what. Yeah.
If he wins, he's gonna KO him, right? That's the idea.
I think if he wins, he's gonna. Yeah, he's not gonna win on points. He's gonna knock him out. I mean, I've played it 100 times, bro.
You played it in your head 100 times,
and I'll get more into it in a minute. Go ahead, George, man. Who do you think?
I think if Ruiz passes round 4 or 5, I think he takes the fight.
Let me ask you something, because in terms of nutrition or a lot of the things that these guys have been doing are changing. I'm not sure if it's changing their conditioning, but for sure they're changing their physique. So if you look at Andy Ruiz, he's dropped at least about 10 pounds. He's a little bit more top-heavy now, so he seems bulkier in the chest, bulkier in the shoulders. You look at Anthony Joshua, he's also leaned up, so he dropped a lot of muscle mass, you know what I mean? And he's coming in a little bit skinnier than we're accustomed to seeing him. Who do you imagine that type of transformation benefits more? Is it better for Andy Ruiz to lose the 10 pounds and do all that, or is it going to make a bigger difference for Anthony Joshua to drop some muscle and come in a little bit leaner? Or is it good for both of them? Yes.
I think I don't know. That's a good question. It just depends on their body type, their body style, I guess. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it's going to play out, how their changes that they made is going to affect the fight.
That's one thing I'll say. You could see that they both are taking it very seriously. They're not just coming in to replay the same thing. Andy Ruiz has made changes to, his size, to basically
how do we know
conditioning. That? You can see it.
I can't
It's
tell.
Visible. Oh, you don't
I'm
you
not
don't think
talking
so?
smack. I just can't tell. I don't know.
You can't tell?
Do we have a weight? Have we actually seen him on the scale to know that he's dropped weight or anything?
No, the 10 pounds. The 10 pounds is really just I'm talking in what he has said he's lost. So he said we've lost
So he's
about
just
10
saying
pounds.
that.
Ruiz or
Andrew
Joshua?
Ruiz. So Andy Ruiz has said we're only trying to lose about 10 pounds.
I'm
and
just
we're trying to stay about
accustomed
the
to
same.
seeing the memes on him.
Now
he's eating tacos.
He is
in
also,
Mexico.
to me, I
or
think,
whatever,
particularly if you guys saw, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he had posted a photo after sparring Michael Hunter, and he was sitting on the ring apron, and you could see that he's carrying the weight a little bit differently. So, it looks to me like he's a little bit more in shape, more toned at the top, and lost a little bit in the gut.
Well,
right?
let's see what the scales look like.
So you look at it and you're
now,
okay, and they asked him if it was intentional, and his reaction was, we only want to lose about 10 pounds because we want to keep the power, but we also want to be faster. So we have faster hands, but we want to keep all the power that we have. So we're not trying to lose
weight,
too much,
right? Because the weight is what goes into the punch.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the thing, though. I mean, I know for me, for instance, right, even between 224 and 214, being that weight, losing 10 pounds is a big difference. It really is. I mean, and I'm over 200 pounds, right? So when I'm down, I can feel it. I can feel myself a little bit quicker. Like I told you, when I'm on the treadmill, when I'm 10 pounds lighter than I am, when I'm running, when I'm at 224 and trying to do 2 miles compared to when I'm 214 and trying to do 2 miles, there's a big difference. I can feel it even on my steps and the way I walk. I don't think he wants to lose too much because he doesn't want to lose that power. But 10 pounds might just it might be good for him as far as his cardio and the way the way his body feels.
And that's what he and his camp is essentially. That's what he's saying is we decided, hey, we're going to lose a little bit of weight, pick up some speed, but try and keep all the power that we have. So we don't want to lose too much. And he certainly looks more fit. Anthony Joshua, I think the transformation is even a little bit more evident. You look at him and you're so used to him looking like he was chiseled, like a statue. You know what I mean? And you see him now and you're like, oh wow, he's lean. Like he's obviously he's not like shoulders on shoulders kind of thing. He's lost some of that muscle mass. And you could say that, hey, that's a choice for them to help preserve conditioning, or something like that, maybe so that the muscles aren't burning as much oxygen as they were in the previous fight. Because there was something wrong, right? Because he even went to the corner at one point in the first fight and said, why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? Like why he was never able to recover from whatever it was happened to him.
First fight in the U.S., right?
He
first fight in the U.S. as well.
It almost seemed like, no excuses, and give Andy all the credit in the world, but you're right. Something wasn't right. I don't know if it was.
I agree. I saw it too.
An anxiety attack.
I saw it too. Walking to the ring, I saw
to the ring.
Something doesn't look right. I was saying it to other people.
I watched the fight the other day again, right? In the evening, I sat there and I watched it. I replayed it. And they were waiting for him to come out of the locker room.
Something wasn't right.
He came out and he was just like, his eyes, like something wasn't right. Something wasn't there. But you know what? I mean, mentally, I don't think he should have took this fight. I think he should have took another fight before he went back in the ring against Andy. I don't think he should have took this fight because mentally, I mean, me and you go out there to the parking lot and you knock my ass out and we got to fight 3 months later. I'm going to remember you knocking me out there and I'm not going to want to fight you again. I mean, mentally, I'm going to.
But you'll remember that knockdown that you had on me first, though, right?
Maybe. I mean,
let me,
I'm just saying. I mean,
and because you were in my neighborhood and I was in yours, or what have you. Now you're coming to essentially mutual ground.
I ain't going to talk about neighborhoods. Don't worry.
So let me ask you guys this though, because Paulie Malignaggi said something that I found very interesting. And psychologically, going into that fight, what he was saying is, hey, Anthony Joshua is preparing for Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller's a guy who is pushing him at the conferences, who's insulting his family, who's insulting him, and he's really easy to get up for, so that by the time you get to the fight, you actually don't just want to beat the guy, but you want to hurt him, right? And he said, and then everything falls apart, and in steps Andy Ruiz, and he's just happy to be there.
The complete opposite.
Yeah, and he's taking pictures with you, and he wants to have selfies, and he's taking pictures with the belt, and by the time you get there, you have to deal with the fact that you kind of like this person as an individual. You don't want to do the same type of harm to him that you would want to do to, say, a Jarrell Miller. Is that a legitimate case? Do you guys feel like there's a difference? Is it easier for you to get up for someone who you dislike than it is to, say, fight someone who you're friendly with or who who you've come up with?
I think it doesn't. It's you both have to know it's boxing. It's a business. You have to know who you're fighting. Last weekend I fought a good friend. He's number 4 in the nation. We used to be sparring partners. We ended up fighting. We both knew that was going to happen because we were in the same weight class, and there's not too many of us at our weight and age. So we ended up fighting, and after we were okay with it because we knew it had to happen.
What do you think?
I agree with him.
Yeah, it's just boxing. You got to do it, right?
You know what though? Yeah. On that right. So Sacramento last year, I was up in Sac last year for a Thompson card. And the last minute, I shouldn't say last minute, I should say about 3 or 4 days before the card, LaRon Mitchell ended up scheduled to fight one of his sparring partners. LaRon Mitchell is a heavyweight out of San Francisco. He was fighting one of his sparring partners out of Modesto, California. They put that fight onto the card. I met up with LaRon before he had went to the venue in Sacramento. And he told me straight out, I don't want to fight this guy Stacks. He's my friend. I know him. He knows every single move I'm going to do in this ring. I know every move he's going to do, and I feel he straight up told me, I don't want to hurt this guy, right? He ended up losing the fight.
Yeah, you remember in the Super 6, something similar happened where Andre Durrell had said that he didn't want to compete against Andre Ward, Whereas Andre Ward had sort of the same mentality that you guys had. Andre Ward said, hey, it's business. If we need to fight, then we'll fight each other. It's not a big deal to me. And Andre Durrell had said it would psychologically he couldn't get behind a fight with Andre Ward because of the fact that they were teammates and all this different stuff. So I guess it could just impact each person differently. And maybe it did have an impact on Anthony Joshua.
I don't know, and then sometimes you have fighters that just overlook fighters. Like you said, he's pumped up to fight Big Baby Miller. Big Baby Miller's pushing him and talking madness to him. And then he fights Ruiz, who's like, okay, who is this guy? Like maybe he just overlooked him. You never know.
That's some of the narrative that he spins, though, right? So Anthony Joshua has said, like, my mind in that fight was still on Deontay Wilder. And the fact that Deontay Wilder had KO'd Dominic Breazeale and that people were booing him and all this different stuff. And so that he was more inclined to engage in a war. To your point, like, I think Anthony Joshua has essentially said that I could have just stayed on my jab and won that whole fight very easily.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the style. Like, styles make fights. Andy Ruiz, he's like a real Mexican fighter that comes forward and he brings a fight. He likes giving a good show to the crowd. If Joshua would have kept his distance, kept boxing, it would have been pretty boring if Ruiz didn't get to the inside.
Well, that's your point, and that's what he claims. He basically claims, like, hey, I did that because it was getting boring, because people were booing me. I could have just stayed on my jab and won every round, but instead I decided to engage. But those things, I think, my opinion is they come across more as excuses than anything else, right? Like
you got to give Ruiz credit. We've talked about this. Every single punch that Andy threw was worked on in the gym. It's all muscle memory. This guy knew when to duck, when to come over the top, when to throw right hand, when to throw left hand. He knew what was going to work. His team, him and Manny Robles and his team knew exactly what they were getting into. These weren't lucky punches.
Let me tell you one thing that I do want to credit Andy Ruiz with. We were talking earlier about the impact of the moment and how you can see it sometimes on a fighter's face, the moment. Andy Ruiz did not at all seem impacted by the moment. Even in the first fight. I went back and looked at it, and he was like, it was just another fight.
Yep.
Like, the fact that he was in Madison Square Garden fighting for the Unified Heavyweight Championship against an undefeated former Olympic gold medalist, like, didn't seem to bother him at all.
Well, he had nothing to lose either.
Yeah, that's
he had
true.
nothing to
That
lose.
is true.
And that's where, again, like I said, the mentality of a fighter comes into play, because if you're not in it mentally, you're done. And I'd say 95% of the fighters that I talk to, even when they're taking, fights that are just like, just a regular fight, it's not a big name or a championship fight, they never overlook that fighter that's in front of them. They know they're getting in the ring, and one punch can end it and can end their career and can hurt them. So for the most part, when I talk to these fighters and I'm like, oh, you got so-and-so, but, you could be fighting Tevin Farmer next, or you could be fighting so-and-so next, they never want to overlook that opponent in front of them. Once in a while, you'll get a few guys that be like, oh, yeah, just that they don't care. But for the most part, like I say, 95% of the time when I talk to these guys and then I'm like, well, what's next? They'll stop me right then and there. And I learned that early when I started writing early. Don't disrespect their opponent. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I disrespect them, but I've learned, like, don't even ask that question, what's next for you? Let them get through this fight.
100%.
Let them deal with what they got in front of them. Don't change their mentality of what they got focused in front of them on, and then go from there. Some fighters will. Some fighters will be like, oh, yeah, I got this, and then I got this coming up or this coming up.
I hear that all the time.
Right?
Unfortunately. And I always have to regroup these guys to just focus on next, now.
The ones that have been in the game, the ones that have usually a good core around them, they're the ones that got the right mentality. They're the ones that'll be like, yeah, you know what? I got so-and-so, but don't let his record fool you. If you go and you look at their box rec and you get these kids, there's a kid out of Modesto. This kid's like 4-17, right? But he's never been knocked out. I forget his name. But he's fought like everybody. He's fought like almost every damn Golden Boy fighter.
About.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's fought Pablo Rubio. He's fought all these guys. He just fought in Bakersfield a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Gaxiola. Michael Gaxiola.
Yeah.
Right? Kid's 4-14, 4-15 now, but never been stopped and just tough as nails, right? So you can't let these records fool you. Sometimes these fighters, he's lost every fight. He's lost 7 fights in a row. Oh, wow. Kid'll get in there and turn your lights out real quick if you're not focused on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is the point you were making earlier, which is even somebody that has a low BSI, like a 5 or something like that, in some instances you can point to something and say, but look, this is more competitive than you would think just based on this score, as an example, right?
Right. Guys like that we already know about.
Thank you, Eddie.
Matchmakers.
Yeah, Eddie gave his name to Gaxiola. Thank you, yeah.
But quick question for you guys, since I know that you've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of like Ruiz's trainings and things of that nature, and you know him personally. I've never met the guy. I think he's a hero for Mexican fans, and I think it's amazing what he accomplished and did. Now, my question to you is, do you think him winning that unification, all those belts, and gaining just everything that he's accomplished, right? On the financial side, do you think that can affect a fighter? Do you think, and what I'm getting at is his mentality as far as legitimately waking up positively, as hungry as he was the last fight every day when he's got the new cars, the new jewelry,
the Rocky
new
3
house,
effect?
and all I'm saying, I'm not discrediting him at all. I'm just asking a question. Do you think that's going to have any effect on him because of the stardom, right? Is the stardom going to get the better of his hunger?
I would hope not, but me personally, right, if I have now all these millions of dollars, right, am I really going to want to wake up in the morning and train 100%?
Are you as hungry as you were before?
Yeah, and knowing that, right, I'm already guaranteed $15 million for this fight. Guaranteed $15 million, not including endorsements and everything else. Win or lose, I'm taking home $15 million, right? I'm set for life. If I lose, I'm probably going to get a trilogy. If I win, I'm still champion. Like, I would hope not. I would hope that he stays focused and that his team around him keeps him
grounded, right?
Grounded, but some of the stuff I've seen with him buying his houses, rolling around in the Rolls Royce, hanging out with some of these rappers and some of these other guys, and that's all fine.
Yeah.
But
how's he taking the fight?
How's he
mentally?
This camp has been really closed. I know he did a workout in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to that workout, but this camp, it's been real tight. So hopefully Manny has him grounded. You know what I'm saying? Because I know personally, if you don't have money and you get money.
Right.
A lot of times your mentality, it's going to change. You're going to want to spend. You're going to want to be doing all these things. You're not going to want to focus on
people that win the lottery. How they have shows about that, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Poor people win the lottery. They blow it all and they lose everything. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying it takes a special being also to be able to stay grounded in these types of situations and not let it blow up his head too much and not wake up properly for that hunger to get that win and fight and train properly.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I'm not part of the
it comes up a lot
anything.
because people see the Rolls Royce, they see the mansion on Instagram, they see all the things that he's doing, and they look at it and like I said, I called it the Rocky 3 effect, but that's effectively what we're saying, right? Did he go and get soft, right? Did he go and essentially lose that hunger or lose that desire?
But real quick, before you carry on, when you say that, right? And you guys know, because I know you guys are into probably Instagram and Facebook and all the social media as I am as well, right? For me personally, not on the media level, but personally, I put what I want people to see, not what's really going on in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Right.
He may have something completely different going on in his life than what we see on social media.
Absolutely.
What people see on social media, what I'm doing is what I want them to see.
Right.
I want them to see me in Vegas, or I want them to see here.
It could be a show. It could be all for show.
I don't want them to see me in my garage cleaning up cans and going and cashing in cans, or cleaning up dog shit in the backyard, or doing whatever the hell I'm doing in my house, right? They see what I want. So
Absolutely.
it could be that Andy is putting this out there as a psychological event. It could be, it could be reverse psychology that he's throwing out there. Yeah, I'm spending this money. I'm on Jimmy Kimmel. I'm here. I'm there, because that's what he wants people to see. So I think I don't know him that well
Fair
to tell
enough,
you.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it'll be different for every person, right? Because you look at it and you go, well, money didn't impact Floyd Mayweather in that way, right? He never grew tired of being the best. He always wanted to be the best, and you saw it in his training and the condition that he kept himself in all the time, right?
But he also made a lot of money early on.
He made a lot of money early on.
Ruiz has made that much money with all those professional boxing years and fights, and
True.
then he finally hits the lotto.
Yeah.
And is that going to change him?
True. And I guess what I'm saying is it depends on who the person is, right? Some people it will certainly change, and some people will not. I think the way that you have to look at it in
Conor
this context,
McGregor is another one. We're talking
exactly,
about. He hit the lotto,
and that's it, right? He checked out.
He's checked out.
So, like, some people will change, some people will not. I think what you have to look at is how seriously does he appear to be taking the fight, right? Because if you look at it and you say, oh, yeah, he's got the Rolls Royce, he's got the mansion, but he also looks to be in good shape. When you see videos of him training, he looks to be training well. Like, it's kind of like, Luis Ortiz got a big payday, the first time he fought Deontay Wilder. He comes back, he's getting an even bigger payday. He came in the best shape I've ever seen him in.
I agree.
Right? Like, he was in, like, phenomenal shape. He's a
was.
year older, but he looked a lot better than he did before. So you can't look at it and go, like, he was impacted by the money. He actually, whatever the case was, even though he was coming off the loss from Deontay Wilder, but, like, it reflected in his training how seriously he took it. And I look at Andy Ruiz and I go, hey, man, the guy's in shape. Like, he's coming back here and he's like, I'm going to be in better shape than I was in last time, right? And last time he was a problem, So, like,
as a fighter, for you guys, another thing is, like, confidence, right? With him knocking Joshua out, stopping him the way he did, right? Knocking him down, then stopping him, having the fight stop. How big is it in, like, confidence? Have you ever fought somebody more than one time, or even sparred somebody more than one time, where you're just that confident that you're going to go in there and kick their ass? It doesn't matter what happens, that you just know that you got this guy's number.
Yeah.
How big is confidence for you guys?
Confidence is huge. If when you go in there, let's say you spar someone, because I haven't had a rematch or anything, but you go in there and you spar someone that you sparred before, or you're better than, or whatever the case is. Confidence allows you to take more risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And when you take more risk, you get rewarded better,
I think that, to your point, a lot of reason you see guys who get knocked out and then they have an immediate rematch, they get knocked out even faster.
Constantino, right?
Right? Like, yeah. Because
how he got the rematch and got the knockout even quicker, right?
Yeah.
Or around the same time.
And that happens pretty commonly, and I think part of it is, I have what it takes to hurt this guy. I just have to kind of go and put it on him. You know what I mean? So, like,
Wilder did it twice. He did it against Stavern, and then he did it against Ortiz.
Yeah.
I mean,
they both came quicker. Like, once you get the knockout the first time,
bam, that much quicker. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take him long to put Stavern into those damn ropes.
No, not at all.
So, I don't know, man. I mean.
And it can work both ways. Like, you look at Tyson Fury, who obviously tasted Deontay Wilder's power, but he also is like, hey, I got up from that, and I was 300 pounds.
I got up from the dead.
Yeah, I was 300 pounds.
That was insane.
I had been an alcoholic. I wasn't even in shape. You know what I mean? And you look at him now, he's in way better shape. And man, last time I took you to the limit, and I wasn't even in shape. Like, now I'm going to come in and be in shape.
Speaking of Fury, so last time I was in New York, there's a bar down there. It's called...
Jimmy's Corner?
No, not Jimmy's Corner. It's it was the Mauler, the heavyweight fighter. He's got a bar down there now, and it's named after him. Anyways, there's a bar down in New York, and every time I go, I always go to the same bar, and it's known there. Tyson Fury, last time he was there, he has this huge entourage of his people, right?
Yeah.
And they all just come, and they're going back to what you're talking about, drinking, and they just out-drink the whole bar. They're telling me stories about, just all of Tyson Fury's people, and that's
right. Like, he was a huge drinker, drug abuse, all this different stuff. There's got to be a certain confidence in knowing, man, like, I took you all the way to as far as you could go.
But that's also a safety net, though. It's also a safety net, because I felt like I've had experiences where I go to the gym and I'm sick and I'm already making excuses like, you know what, I'm gonna set my standard lower, I guess, because let's say it's a sparring day, I'm sick or I have a headache, and sometimes it turns out because I have that safety net of allowing myself to be okay with not performing as well, I actually perform better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually.
So it's kind of, I don't know, there's too many variables.
There you go, Dempsey's.
Shout out to Oscar Sanchez.
I don't know why I'm forgetting that right now. Yeah, Dempsey's.
Oscar.
But yeah, that place, they said that all of his gypsy people come in there and they just freaking wreak havoc in there.
It was funny because he did like a little skit before he fought Otto Wallen in Vegas, and they took him to Tacos El Gordo.
Oh yeah.
And Tyson's just grubbing, and they're like, we're going to bring you a traditional Mexican drink, right? And the lady was bringing him horchata, and he's all, what, tequila? He's like, no, I forgot the bottle of tequila today.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, it's part of marketing yourself. Like you were saying,
gotta
Tyson
market
Fury
yourself.
was getting out there, man, putting himself in front of the American
He
audience.
put on a show on Mexican Independence Day, man. I'll tell you that. And like I said, personally, I didn't see it as an insult, man. I mean, he brought out the mariachis. He had the dancers. He came out. I mean,
Hey, man,
it
it's
is
show
what
business, right?
It's show business.
Show
It is what it
business.
is.
And we're talking about it now, right?
Exactly.
Whether we like it or love it, that's
So
how it is.
I told you guys last week I was going to defer my prediction until this week, and I still don't have one, so you're still not going to get one from me because it could go either way. I could legitimately make a case for either fighter winning this, and so at the end of the day, because there's a clear path for each fighter to win, I don't know who's going to win, so I'm just going to look forward to it and enjoy it as a fan.
I'm the same way, man.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
Either guy could win.
I'd pick Joshua to knock him out.
Just remember, like, that fight was 3 seconds away from ending the way that everybody thought it was going to end.
Right.
You know, it almost went exactly as scripted, and right up until the point that it didn't. So, like, they both have the power to hurt each other. They both have made changes. They're both coming in shape.
What's crazy is, right, I think that right hand that he took after he got knocked down was harder than the left that put him down, you know? I mean, the left stunned him, and he went down, and he got back up, and you know, Joshua threw that big overhand right that cracked him. And
well, that's the biggest issue here in where you guys are divided and not having a decision, because these heavyweights are so big, so powerful, so explosive. One shot changes everything. Yeah. And both these guys are heavy hitters, big boys. You know, it's going to be an awesome fight.
Yeah, for as long as it lasts, it should be good.
So I'm going to have me a big old bowl of I'm debating now, menudo or pozole. I'm going to go with pozole because it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to have me my pozole ready.
Oh, that's right, 8 a.m. All right, so what time should I be over at your house?
8 a.m., brother. I have the pozole ready, brother.
All right.
He lives too far.
Yeah, but no, I think it's going to be a good fight this weekend.
All right.
I agree. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Let them shout out their.
Of course, man. I
gotta
give you guys an opportunity. You guys make sure to let everybody know where we can follow you, all your social media accounts, stuff like that. Plug your Instagrams, your YouTubes, everything. Let's start right here.
My Instagram is Jesse Lobito Gonzalez, and my Facebook's Jesus Gonzalez, and same with Twitter.
I'm on Instagram at Acosta 562. Also have a YouTube channel at El Yuyu. You guys can check out those videos there.
Highly recommended, by the way. Highly recommended.
So will you be back in the ring February?
Yeah, we're aiming for February.
Thompson?
Yes.
Thompson card, man. Make sure to follow Thompson. They got a lot of good prospects on there. Yuyu's one of them. I've seen him fight a few times for Thompson. Good kid. Somebody good to follow. You know, so make sure to follow his YouTube channel as well.
A lot of good information on the channel, for sure.
Yep, I agree. Instagram, CB Boxing 1. Facebook, my name, Charles Bosecker. Thank you for having me on, you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, man.
It's awesome. Always good times.
You can follow me at SupremeBoxingInc.com and on all social media platforms on Supreme Boxing. You can also please follow the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. We always have a lot of stuff going on. We have our new interactive museum inside of the mall on Maryland Parkway, inside of Heads Up Las Vegas. A lot of good things going on there. So be sure to follow me on Supreme Boxing and follow the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, as well as Just Boxing Live.
Of course. Before I give my own plugs, I first want to give a shout out to Combat Sports Collective. Combat Sports Collective is a full-scale fighter support system providing fighter resources like strength and conditioning, photography, apparel, soon to be supplements and recovery. That's Combat Sports Collective, logo of champions. Follow Combat Sports Collective on Instagram.
And before we go, I want to give one more big shout out right now, man. I want to give a very, very big shout out to my boy Sean and the Just Boxing Foundation. It's a new foundation, and this week he was able to make a modest contribution to all 10 Southern California fighters that are going to be representing and going to the Olympic trials in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I just want to give the Just Boxing Foundation a big shout out. Even though the foundation can't help all 104 fighters that are going to the trials, or even kids from Northern California, we've started with the Southern California Boxers. So big shout out to you and to the foundation for helping these kids out, Sean.
Respect.
Awesome, man. Starts from the beginning, and that's amateurs.
And, so for those of you, only 4 of you have finished claiming it. 10 of you are total. So you guys make sure
your money.
Claim it. It's there. It's real. You guys can ask, the number of people who have taken it already. It's a real contribution. Please DM me at Just Boxing Live. You can follow me at Just Boxing Live on Instagram. Follow me at Just Boxing Live on Facebook. I'm like blushing now and don't know how to end the show. I appreciate it, but definitely I appreciate.
And no
all
stump
the
stacks this week.
No stump stacks this week, but we'll do it again later. And of course, we look to do more things for the boxing community in the future. We're just getting the foundation off the ground, and the way that we decided to start that was by focusing on the Southern California, Los Angeles area. But we hope that will grow and that we can support more fighters. You guys are the future of boxing, and I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate all that you guys do. So thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with us today and talking boxing. You're welcome back anytime. I very much enjoyed it. As always, that's all I got for you.
Peace. Thank you.